This is The Other 51. I'm Brian, and this week, my guest is sports writer Lyndsey D'Arcangelo. My guest this week is a sports writer, an author of an upcoming book about the history of women's football in America. Very excited. A great Twitter follow, too. Just all-around awesome person. Lyndsey D'Arcangelo, welcome to The Other 51.
Thanks, Brian. That was quite the introduction.
I'd like to make everyone feel welcome here, and it's true, which is nice. So how is we're coming out of pandemic life as we record this in Western New York. So how's pandemic life been treating you, and kind of how's it feel to be almost on the other side of all of this?
We're slowly getting back to normal. My wife and I, we have a daughter, and she's in third grade, but she goes to a small Catholic private school. So she's really been in school all year. So we've sort of had a semblance of normalcy at home. And both my wife and I work from home and have been for years now. So it wasn't really that much of an adjustment. This year, last spring was kind of hard. But this year, like I said, we sort of have had our normal routines. Luckily. And so we've been lucky in that regard.
Good. Yeah. My daughter's in fifth grade and in public school, and she just started going back last week, kind of full time. She'd been doing the hybrid thing. And my wife and I are lucky to be able to work from home. So are you guys in separate rooms? Because my wife and I are 3 feet apart. We have adjoining desks.
How do you do that? No. We need our own space. Well, so we work in completely two different mediums. Mine is obviously creative and in sports, and she's in technology. She actually works for Amazon and kind of the high up technology division. So she's constantly on conference calls. Like that's pretty much her day is constant conference calls. And then, I'm more of an independent, with writing and stuff. It's something you just do yourself. So unless I have interviews or podcasts to do or radio spots, I'm just, doing my own thing. So we definitely need separate spaces. Her office is upstairs. Mine is downstairs. And we're kind of like two ships passing in the night when we convene in the kitchen, for snacks and stuff. But
my wife's an editor. She's a copy editor, and I teach and do the writing and podcast things. So it's kind of weird. It's kind of funny. We met in a newsroom, so it's kind of like that old newsroom vibe where you're working with each other and kind of bouncing sentences. And does this sound right off of each other? But yes, there are times when each one of us have to put the headphones on and be like, okay, I need to disappear and not talk to you for a little bit while I grind down on this.
Right. What newspaper did you meet at?
The Binghamton, the Press and Sun Bulletin. Okay. I was a sports writer, and she was on the copy desk.
Nice.
So, as I was getting ready for this, I read your newsletter that you put out this week. It was a great great story you told about watching not only your first WNBA game, but the first WNBA game, and kind of the impact that had on you. I'm amazed. That was so cool to kind of go back and for me to kind of relive that at a distance. And what was that like? Why did you decide to write that as a copy of your newsletter this week?
Well, so I like the newsletter is fun, right? Because I can just, when I get something moves me or I get the urge, if a topic kind of like comes into my head and kind of sticks with me for more than a second, I know I have to write about it. So I have that free reign that's one thing I love about having my newsletter. It's really a Q&A with WNBA players, past and present. Totally a laid back kind of Q&A, fun kind of thing. But I added columns to it because I would get the urge to write something, and it's not something that The Athletic would normally run. So that's who I write for on the regular is The Athletic. And I do mostly feature profiles and sometimes analytical stuff on the WNBA and women's basketball. So to be able to write a column just off the cuff, that's something I miss a lot. So I'm glad that I'm able to do that. And so, I was just thinking about the WNBA's 25th anniversary, 25th season coming up, and just marveling at that and thinking back to when the league started, and then when the actual game obviously was 24 years ago because the league started a year after they were formed. Just where I was at in my life at that point, and how it just had an impact on me, not only from wanting to get back into playing basketball in any way I could possibly do it, but also how it kind of just set me on this career path that I have now. So I'm glad that it resonated with a lot of people.
So kind of talk about that career path a little bit and kind of how you got from that person, that 19-year-old, I think you were watching the first WNBA game, to where you are today.
Yeah, it's so I have a twisty career
Those
path.
are the best kind, though.
I know, right? So I never really, my mom told me when I was a teenager I should go into sports writing. It was one of those things where I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. Even though I loved sports and I loved writing for whatever reason, maybe because, I'm a teenager and want to do my own thing, whatever. Didn't think I could meld the two together or whatever. I didn't want to be a journalist. I wanted to be the next great American novelist. That's what I wanted to do. So when I first went to college, I didn't start as a writing major. I just sort of had to figure that out and ended up graduating with a degree in English and creative writing. But after sort of trying a couple of different things, and then again, I would constantly be writing fiction on the side. And I ended up moving to Boston, Massachusetts after I graduated, and I got a job at a college, Wheelock College, and I was working as an office assistant, but also it was for the Department of Community Relations. The director wanted me to write articles about what was going on in the community, and I thought, well, I can do that, and it's writing based. That's easy, So I started doing that, and the more that the time went on, I realized that I hated the office work, but I loved the writing, and that sort of, a light bulb went off in my head and was like, you need to get back to this somehow. And I ended up moving back to Buffalo, New York, where I'm from, born and raised, in around like 2003. And I got my first job as a sports reporter at a weekly paper, just covering high school sports. But I loved it. You get paid nothing. I had to hold down another job, actually, to be able to do it. And I did that for about 6 or 7 months. And my brother, I have a twin brother, and he was working at the Buffalo News as a sales guy, selling advertising. And he got me in the door again as an office assistant, again, which I hated. But I was at a newspaper, right? So I would go down and hang out with the sports writing guys, introduce myself, chat with them. I gave my resume, even though I didn't have much, but some college clips when I did some writing in college. At the school newspaper, and then when I had the weekly gig. So I didn't have much on the old resume, but I just kept trying. I would talk to editors and whatnot, and then a spot opened up. They were looking for a writer in the advertising department to do copywriting in their whole creative department, and the guy who ran it knew of my writing background, asked me if I wanted to take it. And I did. I figured it was writing. I just want to do something with writing. So I actually spent 5 years as a copywriter.
Okay.
Until 2009. And I was still writing fiction on the side. I had written a couple books trying to get them published, which I ended up doing. I also have 3 young adult LGBTQ novels. Not with any major publisher, more like a mid-level, I guess. But, I did that on the side while I was working as a copywriter. And then in 2009, I decided to take the plunge and pursue writing full time, the kind of writing I want to do. I had started freelancing too, writing for different print publications. Okay. I wasn't really doing any online stuff. So I did. I ended up leaving the news after 5 years and started just freelancing my butt off. Our daughter was born in between there, so I had to take some time off to raise her for the first 2 years of her life, which was another interesting side turn, I guess you could say. But that even gave me something to write about. I started writing for a very popular lesbian magazine that was a national print magazine at the time, and I had a column called Mr. Mom, where I talked about just raising my daughter as being a tomboy and someone who never thought I would be a stay-at-home mom. And then in 2015, I got back into the game and I started focusing more on writing about sports. The editor at Curve, the managing editor, asked me to start writing some feature profiles on lesbian athletes. And that's what really first got me into reconnected with it and realized that I could write a damn good profile, but also I could meld my love of sports with this. So I did that for a while and started reaching out to, more online sites like ESPNW. And what really changed for me, Brian, you're probably going to laugh at this, was joining Twitter.
Really?
Yes, I joined Twitter that November 2015, and so I wouldn't be doing what I am today without Twitter.
Okay.
I wouldn't have this book published without Twitter, because I met so many people through it, and it gave me so much more visibility. And, one of the reasons I have the job at The Athletic is because one of the writers for the Buffalo site that I'm good friends with now, we started following each other on Twitter. And you build these relationships and these connections. My co-author with this book, I also met through Twitter. So it was just a boon to my career, and it got me more visibility. It got me more opportunities. I started writing for more popular sites, and it just has gone from there. So I could really say that for the past 6 years, so since 2015 is when I really concentrated on sports writing specifically. And I love it. And my mom was right.
They always
Which is
are.
the bigger
Aren't they?
lesson through all of that. So yeah, I never can really just say, okay, I graduated from college and I got my first job at this paper. It didn't work that way for me. It was just a journey pretty much that I just kind of kept following these instincts and impulses.
So I always find that interesting because, like, me and my sister, who from the Buffalo News, we were that other way. Like, we went to journalism school, got our job at the paper, and started doing all, kind of like the more, I guess, what was the traditional route, which doesn't exist. But I'm curious too, as you kind of look back on it and look at your writing now, how much do you think the way you cover sports and the way you look at writing is influenced by that kind of all over the place journey, that it wasn't a straight line journalism journey, and those other experiences? Do they influence how you look at both writing and maybe sports in particular?
Well, I think from the writing aspect, it makes me very grateful and humble about what I'm able to do right now. And just, I get up every morning and I love sitting down at my computer and just seeing what's in front of me and what's on my plate as far as writing goes. And I love it. And I know I'm very blessed to be able to do that. As far as, I think being immersed in women's sports my entire life and seeing the evolution of even the WNBA from nothing to something, seeing it grow in popularity, like, I've been in this world for a long time. So it makes perfect sense that I'm writing about these athletes and these sports. And I do feel when I'm doing an interview that there's a connection there and I come with credibility. And so I really think there's nothing else I'd rather be writing about at this point in my life. And I'm just so very grateful to be doing it.
So I did want to ask you about that, because following you on Twitter and reading your work, I mean, you are a fierce advocate for women's sports and for women's sports coverage, and deservedly so. Absolutely. And I just wonder, and knowing your background maybe influences this a little bit, but there's always that line that, journalism professors like me will like to bring up about journalism versus advocacy, or journalism versus fandom, right? So, that line where I shouldn't be advocating for X or the league or whatever. I report on that, and you're on the other side of that, and I just love to get your view on kind of your approach to that and why you approach it that way.
Yeah, so that, obviously, joining Twitter, it's easy to get caught up in the nonsense of it, right? And it took me a long time to find my balance with just being, and as my audience has grown, as I've gotten more followers, I've realized the more importance of that, and I talk to other sports writers in this space, and a lot that I respect, and just get I've gotten advice, and they've come to me and said, hey, I don't know if that was the greatest tweet. So it's nice to have that feedback. But yeah, it's a balancing act, although I do feel I'm a lot better now than I was even like 2 months ago. I actually went through and deleted a bunch of old tweets and got rid of the nonsense stuff. And I don't engage people, and people call them trolls, but if guys jump in my mentions when I tweet something, in the past I would have quote tweeted and then whatever, said whatever. I try not to do that anymore. I really just wanted to focus on what I could add to this space, because Twitter can be so negative. So what can I do? I can share my work. I can share friends' work, and I can share the work of people I respect. And I can talk about women's basketball. I can talk about, Buffalo sports. And I can talk about other women's sports. And if I see something that I want to lift up, or I want to point out, or a stat, or this and that, I can do that. So that's kind of what the balance I've tried to hone in on, and just go with that. And I am still learning of what, how I should, like how you said, like you want to be neutral in certain aspects, but if the league does something really awesome, like if their viewership grows, and I want people to know that, because guys and so many people out there are like, ooh, nobody watches WNBA. So those are numbers I want to share, whether it's a press release that comes from the league or not, it's still a stat that deserves to be shared. Is the WNBA perfect? No. And I've called them out on some things. I was harping on them for, I feel like it was all last season about getting new jerseys out. And now they have, I'm not saying I caused it, but those are the types of things you want to see change and stuff like that. So I don't want to let things slide, but at the same time, when something is done well, I want to share it, and I want people to be talking about it. So I think I answered your question in there. Yeah. It's kind of roundabout way of
No, and I was gonna say too, like you're the Twitter success story. I mean, not the only one, but you're like the positive one when there's so much, like you said, negativity, and Twitter can be such a, I guess a lot of times traditionally viewed as kind of like a big karma suck for journalism, and you've kind of done the other way. You kind of built your career in a good way out of it. So you kind of hinted at this in the last question, but kind of how did you use Twitter in a way that raised your profile and kind of got you this new career, but also doing so in a way that's not just like lowest common denominator. Do you know what I mean? Like you're not just like throwing out opinion and stuff like that. You're kind of doing the more thoughtful stuff and the more, your own voice out there. So how did you find that balance?
Well, the first thing was I never tried to be anything but me. Even if it was like a personal tweet or sharing something, it's always come from a good place. It's me, I've never tried to put on an act or be somebody else. Sometimes you see people with very large profiles and platforms and other people trying to be just like them, phrasing things the same way, saying things the same way. And, I get that, but that's not me. All I can do is just be myself. And that's all I've ever done. So the other thing was I used it for networking really a lot, meeting other writers, connecting with a lot of other women writers in this space, was huge for me. I became friends with people I used to watch or listen to. This is crazy to me. Christine Lyndsey is a longtime ESPN personality, she does the in-between news updates, but I used to hear her like when I was in my 20s, I used to hear her on ESPN, and then becoming friends with that person and exchanging, having a conversation, even if it's just on Messenger. But those types of things just kept happening. Sarah Spain is another one who I would consider a friend now, and just a bunch of other people who just have really helped me raise my platform. Tim Graham, who works for the Buffalo News, was an incredible asset. He's the reason I have the the job at The Athletic. I mean, he's not the only reason, but he got me the interview. He gave them my name when they were looking to add more people to the Buffalo site. He brought me on his radio program on a weekly basis, just to add another voice, a women's voice to the space. So whenever I have college kids who will just message me, my messages I leave them open. And they still message me just to talk or ask me questions. And that's one thing I always say is network like crazy. You have this ability that I didn't have when I graduated college.
Right.
You have this ability to jump right in, and start connecting with people that I wasn't able to connect with or even get near. Doris Burke, for crying out loud, is one of my friends now. It's just, that blows my mind. The fact that we exchange DMs and had on a regular basis, that I got to interview her face to face. I mean, again, if I hadn't joined Twitter, that wouldn't have happened.
Right.
It's just, I can name countless things where Twitter has been beneficial to me. But I also see the negativity of it, and I see where it can go left very quickly. And that's not a political statement. That's, what I mean? It can go in the wrong direction very quickly. So you have to kind of be cognizant of that. So, that's primarily what happened. It just says, I used it as a tool, I guess, would be the best way to put it.
Okay. And you mentioned that you met your co-author, Britni, on the book through Twitter, and the book is available for pre-order. Hail Mary, The Rise and Fall of the National Women's Football League. Cannot wait to read it. Still have to pre-order it, but I'm looking forward to reading it. Just starting off, are you guys done with the book and just waiting for it to come out, or are there like last pieces coming together, or?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that, because we just turned in another round of copy edits today.
Okay.
We just finished that. We've seen the design of it. We've got some photos in it, so we've seen how that's going to be laid out. We've been involved in the process. So it's really cool, because I've never published something at this level.
Okay.
A, and B, I've never done a nonfiction book, so I'm kind of just soaking it all in and just taking in the process. And it's been really cool to see how it all comes together.
So let's back up a little bit. Where did the idea for this book actually come from?
Yeah, so I've known Britni for probably shortly after I joined Twitter. There was this group on Facebook that a bunch of us from Twitter joined, and it was just women and LGBTQ people from all over who were in this group of sports writers. And you had people, like I said, Sarah Spain was in this group. It was just Julie DeCaro was in it. Just a lot of people. And we got familiar with each other. Britni messaged me and asked me, just, are there any football, like they knew I had written about football before numerous times. So they knew I had the knowledge. And Britni just asked me, like, are there any football books I can go to for women? And I said, no, there are none. And Britni had already searched on Amazon and couldn't find anything. And I said, you know what? You should write one. And they said, well, maybe you should write one with me. And that was it. That was kind of how it planted the seed. So we just started brainstorming. And our first idea was to write a book about women in football, but all aspects, coaches, analysts, commentators, players. I mean, it was so broad, but we wrote up a proposal. We secured an agent, wrote up the proposal. And as our agent was pitching it, our agent kept getting the feedback that it was too broad. So we were trying to figure out how to narrow it down. And Britni started work on this article about this team called the Toledo Troopers, which is the winningest football team in women's football history. And they sent me a message and said, Lyndsey, I think this is it. I think this is what we have to focus on.
All right. So what was the reporting / research process for it? Like how did you get information? How did you track down people who were a part of it? Kind of from that idea, like what happened next?
So yeah, we rewrote our proposal. The publisher started biting, and we secured the book deal. And then in spring 2019, we started doing the research, and just it's a lot. We got a lot from old newspapers because this took place in the 1970s. The league itself lasted from 1974 to 1988, but there was football being played before that time as well. So a lot of it came from newspapers. And then when we started trying to track down players, well, all the players are in their late 60s to early 70s. So it's very hard to find people like that, especially that will take you seriously. So we did a lot of Facebook stalking, and just ended up with about 35 to 40 players from different teams. We split up the teams. We couldn't cover every team. Britni ended up doing a lot more of the analytical stuff, just relating to feminism, the lesbian aspect on some of the teams, like being gay and out on these teams, and then just Rust Belt working class. I did a lot of the history, actually all the history, and then we split up the teams and then wrote about the individual players and the teams that we had. It all came together really nicely. I was a little worried at the beginning, just that we weren't going to be able to find enough players, but we managed to figure it out and pull it together.
What's your favorite story that you discovered from either the history stuff or your interviews? Like, what's the best? What are some of the better anecdotes you found?
Oh, there's so many. For me, though, one of the things that's close to my heart is that there was a player on the LA Dandelions called, her name is Barbara Patton, and she used to bring her kids with her to practices and games. She was a single mother at the time, and they were always with her. While her son, Marvcus Patton, ended up going to play for the Buffalo Bills in the NFL in the early 90s for a few seasons. He also played for the Kansas City Chiefs and the Washington football team. And so that's a connection that I think is so cool, because the reason he got into football was because of her.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and ended up playing for my hometown team.
So what was you mentioned that you were trying to find people and to get taken seriously by them. Like, how did you kind of connect with these players and kind of convince them to go along with you guys on this?
Some we didn't have to convince very hard at all. Others, there's this player named Rose Lowe on the LA Dandelions, which was one of my teams, and she was an integral part of this team. And I kept trying to get her. I would email her. She wouldn't return my emails. Other players I spoke to said, "You got to talk to Rose. You got to talk to Rose." I tried texting her, and then one of the other players told her I was legit, and said, you need to talk to Lyndsey. And she texted me, and we just texted back and forth. It was very generic, very casual. And she finally felt comfortable and said, "Okay, let's talk on the phone." And then once we spoke on the phone, she was all in. And I'm so glad she was, because she provided some of the most important information. This book wouldn't be what it is without some of the information that she provided. And she just needed to trust, that we were going to do the story justice. Mm-hmm. And I'm just glad. I'm glad she did.
What do you hope people who read the book take away from it?
Gosh, there's so much. That's a great question. Well, I hope they find it educational as much as it is entertaining. And I hope it moves them. And I just hope it resonates, and they realize that, this is untold history. These are stories that have sort of been erased from the sports narrative, and that it's important for these women to have their story told.
So I ask everybody I have on the podcast this, so I'll ask you, what's the best thing you've read lately?
I just finished Brandi Carlile's memoir.
I just started that last night.
It's so good. It is so very good.
I had to wait. I had to pre-order it, and I had to wait for it to come into my local bookstore. I just got it, and I stopped everything else I was reading to start reading that. And it's as good as I want it to be. Yeah, it's well, if you just started it, then it gets better. I love the way she writes, and
I just like how it's set up too. I'm sure I don't know if you've finished the first chapter yet, but there's lyrics after every chapter and then pictures of what she talked about in that previous chapter. I really love how that's done because usually, books will have a spread in the middle of just pictures, and you don't. I love how it's just right after the chapter, so it's fresh in your mind of who these people are, and you can just look and see. And I thought it was really well done. I was impressed. I mean, she's obviously a songwriter, but writing a book is a different animal. So
awesome. Well, and your book. When is your book actually out? When will it be available?
Well, like you said, it's available for pre-order right now, but it comes out on November 2nd, I believe, 2021, this year.
All right. Well, there will be links to pre-order it from local bookstores in the show notes for this. And Lyndsey, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Thanks for listening to The Other 51. Show notes for this and all of our episodes can be found at sportsmediaguide.com by clicking on the Other 51 tab. If you like the show, please consider giving it a rating and a review, either at Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. It really does help people find the show. Our theme music is by Ellie Moritz.